All right, so I was telling you, let's group these 6 into most similar to the most dissimilar. Yeah, I think this guy is the most dissimilar, right? It has more spikes than everything else, right? And then you guys said this and this look like they're the two that resemble each other most. And I'm like, yeah, that's true. I agree with that. So what I was trying to make you realize is that when we have 6 things, the way we compare them is pick one and see like which one does it resemble the most. And then you're like, oh, these two. So even though we are comparing 6 things, the way we are going about it is we are trying to group the first 2. Now, I also induced you to do that by asking you which 2 resemble each other the most. Just to convey the idea that we can't just look at all 6 and like not to do automatically this one versus another, one versus another. And then when we look at this, we're like, okay, this guy has more spikes. And then we compare to each of the other ones. We're like, yeah, definitely, this is the most different. But how, even if you don't agree, the process you're doing is you're comparing each two. So that's what this progressive method does. So here there are 4 sequences, and it's comparing all possible combinations, but in pairs. It's comparing A against B, A against C, A against D, B, okay, B against A is the same thing, then B and C, B and D. Anyway, it's a combination of 2, choose, or 4, choose 2. And the way the algorithm is written is that you first compare them, then you make a guided tree, which is like, okay, it looks like A and D resemble each other most, and C and B resemble each other the most, and then it produces the alignment. So the name of the tool that you are going to use that does that is Clustal. So it's like, how do you make this when you're groups of things that resemble each other, we're going to use Clustal. So here's how Clustal operates. You have those 4 sequences, and it's comparing 2 by 2, and it's putting in this tree, right? This and this are the 2 that resemble each other the most, and this and this. And you are actually going to do this by hand in the future. Woohoo! Where you are grouping, okay, which ones are we grouping? And so these 2 resemble each other, these each other, and then you're going to learn that these guys are nodes. And now what happens is we're going to put all of these, they become one node. And then we're comparing all of these 4 against this. But you're going to learn in which ways we're combining them. But in any case, it's always a 2 by 2, and you come up with, this is called a phylogenetic tree, or dendrogram, or cladogram. You're going to learn the different names. And here you produce the alignment by comparing this with that. So then this gets built in the end. All right, so that's the progressive. You're going to see the iterative starts as a progressive, but basically what it does is scratch this off. Let's start again. What if I had grouped them differently? Would I get a better score? It uses an approach called genetic algorithm, which is a way computer scientists use to optimize something. My husband does a lot of that. A lot of people do a lot of genetic algorithms. All right, so let's see. You can put it on the chat. Which bioinformatics tool and alignment type? So I want to, if you're in class, you would hang your card up. But let's do case 1. You're looking for blocks of similarity between 2 sequences. So you're going to pick either red or blue or the names, and green or yellow or the names. Can you put it on the chat for the case 1? Oh, very good. You guys are there. And yeah, good job. If you're looking at blocks of similarity, maybe we are aligning two reads and building a config. That is what I would use. I use blast. You guys used blast 2, and blast, the L in blast is for local. Good. You can probably guess what the answer is for the next one is. We have 10 sequences. So you're already like, okay, this is a multiple sequence alignment. It's not a pairwise. And I'm looking by evolutionary distances. What does that mean? That means how similar, how dissimilar, that's the distance part. How dissimilar are they? And I'm trying to build that tree that I showed you earlier. So which of these would you use? Good job. Thank you guys for it. Yeah. So yeah, we're going to use Clustal, or you could use Muscle, but from here, yeah, you'd pick Clustal, and Clustal does global alignment. At least that I know of, you can't change. I want Clustal to do local. It does global. All right, so here is why do we need, okay, it shouldn't actually answer already, but why do we need Clustal? So now I want you to look at these 4 figures and group which are the 2 most similar, or yeah, so over what's the most dissimilar. So I'm using figures because it's easier to compare than like words, right? Than DNA or amino acid data. So put on the chat which of these, how would you group these guys? Which 2 you would just start with? These are the most similar. Maybe, yeah. So Leah says heart and cylinder. Maybe, but you could say, well, this thing is kind of like a cylinder, right? Sideways, maybe these 2. Or you could say this one has spikes and this one has spikes. So I was actually hoping for silence here, even though I always wanted to participate. I wanted to go like, I don't know. And exactly, that is the point I'm trying to make. Sometimes the sequences we're comparing are so dissimilar that is hard to even start which are the 2 that we group together. So what happens is if these were sequences and we put them in Clustal, because they are so different, we say that they are evolutionarily distant. And then Clustal doesn't perform very well. Like RAS, maybe there are different opinions. So there's this other tool that we use that is Muscle, which is basically we group these and given some characteristics that assigns a score, and then breaks that initial thought, builds another one, and then gives it another score. So the iterative method starts like Clustal. It does the distance matrix, which is compares each 2, how dissimilar they are, makes a guided tree, and does the progressive alignment. So this part is just like Clustal. But then it does this constructing a new tree. And as you know, my best analogies are you are dating and you have you build these things and you give that date a score. And if you are progressive, you just marry the date. That's it. You came up with this is it. It has a score. But with Clustal or with Muscle, you're gonna muscle through that, and you are going to start over, get a new date, and do this again. And then, okay, so this part is better. It's like, all right, so now you have date A and date B. Date A had a score, date B has a score. And you see which score was better. Maybe it was date A, then you ditch date B, and you kind of say date A, I might still go out with you, but before I go back to going out with you, I'm going to date C. So you now go on a date with C, you assign it a score, you like C better, you throw away A, and then you do it with D. And so it's always building a new score and comparing to the previous score. And at some point, you reach the limit. You know, you're dating, but the scores in your dates are not going up. And you just make a decision of, okay, I'm going to stick with this one. Whichever is I don't know which one the algorithm decides if it's the previous or the last, but whenever the scores are not changing, we say that the scores have converged, and then you stick with that one. So that's how, when we use MUSCLE, you get, at least theoretically, the best tree, because it's doing this over and over. That's why it's the iterative, right? So it's building this tree and giving it a score and then doing it again. So I think I might just go over the last few slides and we'll end that. So this is the set of slides that's called the tree building. And we are going to, so these are the tree building approaches. You're going to see more of this. So, and amazingly enough, MUSCLE performs 3,000 times faster. I don't understand how it can go in multiple dates and still do it faster than one date. Who knows? Maybe you're being too careful in the first one and assigning too many scores. Who knows? But here it's showing the approach for Clustal. So you have these two sequences and these two, and you group them, and then you group them in here. This is your alignment. And your alignment would look like this. But then MUSCLE is aligning the same two scores, the same 4 strings, but it came up with a different alignment. And then you don't have to know all this, but basically this is saying the strategy it uses to come up with the best tree. So as a conclusion, you have different algorithms and you give the same sequences to them, but you might end up with different trees. Well, have a nice weekend. I'm here if you have questions now.